Hello, fellow YouTubers. Fearless Price here. Here to answer some more questions. I got a few questions here I'm gonna ask. I'm not gonna make a very long video, so I'm just gonna go with try to make a quick video here. So this is gonna be mainly just for a lot of the seasonal target team members that will come on board for seasonal and just want a little bit more information. So first question comes from Shawnee Ward. And thanks again to everybody who asked questions or positive feedback. So her question is, I made it through conditional hiring process for seasonal flow team. What's the process like after that? Haven't had orientation yet, waiting on background check. So typically it's pretty late in the season to be coming on as a seasonal team member for a flow team. Usually they hire in October, but if you're just getting hired now and you're still waiting for orientation, then it's gonna be pretty hectic. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, we got Black Friday in 2 weeks, and obviously Target does open at 6 p.m. this year, and they will be opening up earlier every year, which is unfortunate for those team members, which is what I don't miss about working for Target, and is working on Thanksgiving and Easter and everything like that. It's very hectic. So the process for getting hired as a seasonal flow team, it's especially right now, you're gonna be bombarded with a lot of information that you're gonna have to try to take in as much as you can, as far as being making an impact. And the first thing you'll learn is, obviously, you'll learn who your trainer is. You'll learn about Target, and that this is fourth quarter. This is the main thing that we build for all year is Black Friday, and always making sure that the floor is filled, that the shelves are all filled up, and the ads are correct, the pricing's correct, the signage is correct. So if you got hired as a seasonal flow team, you're going to be probably thrown right into the mix of stocking something, which in Target lingo we call pushing. So that you could be anywhere put in, and Target does have somewhat of a lack of training. So, like, they'll just take you, okay, it's your first week, they'll put you and say, like, oh, they'll just give you a quick rundown of how to do things, and you got to try to just manage, so that it's really hectic, especially, like I said, 2 weeks before Black Friday. And most likely on Black Friday, like, I know there's a lot of team members that are working 12-hour shifts that day. You're having to work Thanksgiving at midnight. As soon as it's midnight Thanksgiving, you'll have to work a 4-hour shift, or it depends. But for stores closest to me where I am, they're working midnight to 4 a.m., going home, coming back at 6 p.m. if you're in logistics, like if you're in flow or backroom, coming back at 6 p.m. So, and basically having to just keep the floor filled. It's hectic. If you're back room, you're gonna have to just keep pulling manual calves to make sure that the floor stays filled. And if you're in flow, then you gotta make sure that you're pushing that product out and getting it to the floor and helping guests, managing traffic, making sure that the lines are, not getting hectic and stuff like that. But if you're hired just for seasonal, then I mean, there's most likely a chance, since it's so late, that you will be a permanent. I mean, if that's something that you want to do. So I would really just try to make an impact in that way. But if you're just coming on as regular flow, non-Black Friday, then, I mean, you just learn about how to read labels, how to read the shelf labels, where things go, the pricing, end caps, just basically the basics on how to, what we call stock integrity, just making sure that everything's faced, and if it has a certain amount of facings, that it's all nice and pretty and zoned and everything's forward and just stuff like that. But thank you for the question. If you have any other specific questions, feel free to ask me. The next question is from Ronan. He says, "Greetings, I'm a male with below shoulder hair length, really long. I start training this week as a flow team member. What are Target's policies on long hair on men, if any? Your videos have been very useful. Thank you." And thank you for that. I did answer this in the comments, but I wanted to just make note of that Target's dress code is very lax. You know, they're not very strict on any hair length. Anything that may discriminate, you know, they're not really, they're pretty lax with that, so that's always good, you know. It's hard to work for a company that's really, like, strict on dress code, and you gotta look a certain way, and you gotta be clean shaved, and you gotta have short hair, and, you know, so that's the good thing about Target is that your long hair, if you have long hair and you're a man, it's not a problem, but like I said, I mean, if it becomes a distraction, like, if it's colorful or if you have like a mohawk or whatever, it's all crazy and stuff like that, then they may ask you to kind of like do something with it, or you know. But I mean, like if I were you, I would just tie it back, you know, just so it's not in your way, and especially if you're working with food and stuff like that. If you're working in P-Fresh with fresh food and stuff like that, you want to make sure that you tie that stuff back. But as far as dress code goes, there's not really a strict dress code on clean shaved or hair length or anything like that, so that's the good thing. Next question is from Papu Chis, and he or she asked, "What are some good questions to be ready for at Target's interview? P.S. Nice video, thank you." So if you looked at some of my other interview videos that I did, like I've given examples of good answers and bad answers. The easiest thing to be ready, I mean, Target's kind of changed their interview process with, now they're more surrounded around the vibe, which is being, you know, very customer service oriented, so they want to know. Now they're asking more questions like, name a time when you've helped somebody and where you went above and beyond to help somebody, and what was the problem, like how did you solve it, what was the end result, and like how did you feel, how did they feel, you know. It's very specific, and it could be a long question, and it could be like where you're like, I don't know, like, you know, but you just want to be ready for, just have situations on your mind, like just have a couple specific times that you have on your mind that you can just talk about. Like, okay, if you have no job experience, it's a little more difficult. You can talk about family and stuff like that. Like, oh yeah, my family member had to go to the hospital and this, and I went above and beyond and did this. You just want to like talk to them. You just want to be confident in the answer that you're giving, because a lot of times they don't even hear what you're really saying. They're just writing it down, and then it's like they don't even really. Even if you kind of stray off of the question itself and just talk in general about yourself, like that's always a good thing too. Because it kind of screws up their, like, because they're like writing it down and they're not really like taking it all in. So, but always be ready for situations. So like have a situation in mind when you were at work and you did something so good and you were rewarded for it, and like, you know, oh, one day I had like, there was only like 5 of us, and we had all this work to get done, and so what I did is like I got everybody together and I said we need to do this, and this is and we planned things out and we prioritized what needs to be done first, and then like we executed it, and then the end result was that like we got everything done and we were able to get everybody out, and you know, and then I was like recognized for it and stuff like that. You want that kind of specific template for answering those questions, and if you answer the same with the same answer with just different wording, different questions, that's perfectly fine too. Like I said, if you only have two good examples of something that you did that was good, two different scenarios, and when they ask those questions, regardless of if it's about customer service or about doing something for somebody, just tie those two into the questions that they ask you and just reword it. Like one time when I was working for Best Buy, there was a guest that needed this, so I called the other store, and you know what I'm saying? So that's the kind of thing you want to do. Just be ready for that. Don't be shy. Don't be hesitant about your answers. Don't leave a long drag after they ask the question and be like, can you repeat the question? That's not good. So, last question is it's from Aaron B. I am thinking about applying for the backroom team member position this spring, which is kind of a ways away, but alright. What are the daily tasks typically composed of? I would like to work afternoon to evening shifts, like 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., but are you required to work early morning shifts? Thanks for the videos and info. Well, thank you. And yeah, backroom, as I've stated, has if it's an overnight store, if it's a high volume store, then they're overnight. So they do have shifts available from like 10 to 6 or early morning. So from whatever your availability is, like, I mean, a lot of times they hire just for a specific time frame. So you're either hired as backroom overnight or backroom day. And backroom day is your closing, or you're working part time. For the most part, Target doesn't have full time. So most likely, I mean, in most case scenarios, depending on if you're lucky, you're not going to be working 3 p.m. to 11. You'll be working like 3 to 7 p.m. Maybe 3 days a week, because there's so many other employees, and Target doesn't want to pay benefits for part-time employees. It didn't used to be like that, but for the most part, backroom would always get 40 hours a week. If you're backroom day, you get 40 hours a week. But then they've kind of cut it to where they would just rather have more people and like not have to pay those benefits with having all these full-time employees and not having the hours and stuff. So, but like if you work in the mornings, your basically routine is obviously if you're in the back room, you're gonna get a PDA, which I know Walmart calls it a Gemini. You're gonna get that PDA, and you're gonna log in, and you're going to have batches. If you've seen one of my first videos that was how to pull at Target, or how to pull a batch or something like that, it kind of explains that. Like, you're gonna see these batches pop up for each fill group, which is for each department. So for accessories, deli, meat, dairy. So a lot of times there's specific people that are supposed to pull certain departments, but you just jump into those batches and it'll tell you exactly what to pull, which in Walmart's case it's called picks. And you're just picking those batches where it tells you, okay, this is what sold yesterday. And if it sold like at least 30 to 40% of that item on the shelf, on the sales floor, it'll pull enough to fill that back up. So it's called an accumulator. It's called a sales accumulator. So basically that's what triggers these batches, is if you have a certain capacity on your shelf on the sales floor and they sell a certain amount, it'll trigger a batch to pull to fill that. And then you're just basically pulling those batches to fill the floor. So a lot of times you don't have to push it because the flow team pushes it. You're just pulling it. So you need to pull through all those batches, which depending on the store, it could take 2 hours to pull all the departments in the morning, because that's your day. And then the flow team pushes the truck. So they unload the truck, they push the truck. There is back stock that comes off the truck that the backroom team, after they pull the autofills, which is what they call it, which when they pull all those batches and they get it all to the floor, that's all stuff that needs to be pushed. The flow team pushes it. The back room just worries about pulling it for them, and then after they get done with that, they need to go to receiving, and then all the pallets that come off of the truck that are backstock, when they get scanned off the truck, they'll tell them that it needs to go to the floor or that it needs to go to the back room. So there's two sides. So you're going to need to have the backroom team start clearing the back of the line, which is going to be straight backstock, because the sales accumulator knows that item's already full or should be full. So you need to take that, and then you just got to start putting, like, they call it bowling out, so taking it to the aisle that it goes in the back room, tearing the strips so that the sticker's on the lower left-hand corner, and then you partner up with people and just tag team, just put them up, scan them all in, make sure the quantities are correct, and that's pretty much it. And then after that, your truck process is kind of done as far as the first start, and then you're going to start getting backstock or overstock from the flow team, like stuff that didn't go out from the truck or from the autofills. And it could be open stock, which is a partial case when it's like 12 in a case and 5 went out, so now you have 7 left or whatever it is. So then you need to put it in the right spot in the back room, make sure you scan it, locate it, put it where it goes, put it, if it has a location already in the back room, make sure you put it with it, combine it together, and equally make sure it looks just as good as it does the sales floor, but in reverse. So you want all your barcodes facing you, but you also want it to look zoned just like the sales floor. If you're that type of person that likes to have a good looking back room, which is what I like to do. I like when we have visits that when our corporate partners come in and they state that the back room looks better than the sales floor. So that's always a good thing, that gets you a lot of good recognition, gets you a lot of good raises. So you want to make sure that you do all that. If you're working backroom day, it's a little more less hectic, because all you're doing is, for instance, if you come in at 3, you're just pulling what they call calves, which are also system generated batches that start from sales the hour before. So those batches start dropping at 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. in certain stores. There are just some exception stores, but for the most part, it's 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. every hour. There's a set of batches that drop that you need to check and make sure that you pull all of those. You may be by yourself too. So like when I started, I was working 1 to 10 or something like that, or 2 to 10 by myself. So you need to make sure that you pull all those batches within that hour. Otherwise, the store gets docked for it because you're not replenishing what you should. So you're basically on like a timer where you have to pull those within that hour. So if it drops at 11 a.m., you have till 12 p.m. to pull it. So you need to do whatever it takes to make sure you pull all of those batches and clear it all out, with the exception of there's other batches that are non-system generated, which can be people on the sales floor scanning for outs, which is like, okay, these are outs, so they scan it and make a batch for you to pull because it's empty on the floor. But realistically, they shouldn't be. Best practice is that nobody should be scanning the sales floor after 11 a.m. I mean, because you don't want that to integrate with your calves, because you could be pulling double. So if that's happening in your store, you want to make sure that you ask your store manager or whoever's in charge of logistics, like, hey, it's not best practice to pull your calves and pull EXFs or POGs and stuff like that after that stuff's coming through. So that's what best practice is. And then as a closer, after those calves drop every hour, so you always have something to do, so that's what's good. After you're done with those calves at 5 p.m., then you focus on just backstocking whatever you can, clearing up as many vehicles as you can, clearing these flatbeds, so that the morning team or the overnight team that comes in, they'll have empty vehicles to put all their backstock or push or whatever it is on there. And then you'll need to sometimes pull price changes, which is obviously it's stuff that is in the back room that's going to go on clearance, so it needs to be pulled out of the back room so it can be ticketed, so it can be put on the sales floor to sell. Or you'll have to pull POGs, which are just planograms that the plano team that's going to come in overnight or the next morning, they need to reorganize the way the shelves. They need to change the planogram based on the stores and based on what's rolling out. Like if there's a new item, they need to rearrange the shelvings and stuff like that, and have a new planogram. So that's what you'll be pulling every weeknight. And it could be really big, it could be small. So you always want to make sure you plan ahead for that stuff. And then you just want to make sure everything's clean. You clean up, you do a final sweep. You always communicate with the LOD and let them know like where you're at, what you're doing, like what you're doing above. You know, like, oh, hey, I already took care of this. I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. Like, you know, take your lunch or breaks like where you don't miss those calves every hour. So that's basically all it is. But so that's what your backroom shifts typically compose of, whether it be early morning, overnight, or closing. That's basically your core roles. It's just you'll be pulling and backstocking all day. So you'll be going up and down ladders. You'll be going up and down the back room. You'll be going to receiving, to the stock rooms, up and down, and then you'll be getting calls from the sales floor like, hey, I need an item check for a guest. So you'll need to, you know, see if you have any and pull it and get it to the guest. So I mean, it could be a lot if it's your first week, like, but it's update me on how everything goes with everyone who asked me a question. Please update me, let me know. I look forward to hearing from more people more often. So if I am helpful to you, or if you'd like to see more videos, please ask me more questions. And on top of that, I still will post my next video will be why I left Target and what was the reasoning for that and what happened, and then why I left Pepsi. And so now I'm working at Walmart Neighborhood Market right now, and I will post a video about basically the interview I had for that and how I'm liking that, which I really do. So far I'm liking it. So alright, I'll see you guys next time. So make sure you like, comment, or subscribe and ask more questions. We'll see you next time.